Welcome back to the second code demonstration class. Today we will play a simple guessing game written in C++, wherein a user will try and guess a number stored within the program. And through this code, we will learn how to write conditional statements and add loops to a C++ program. So let's begin by going through the code first. The first couple of lines should be familiar to you by now. In the first line, we are including IOStream file. IOStream file will help us with input and output operations. In the next line, we're defining the main function, wherein we're declaring two variables. The first variable will hold the number that we want the user to guess, and the second variable will hold the user's response. So the first variable again is the_number. Its type is an integer, and it's initialized with the value 3. And the second variable is guess. Its type is again an integer, and its initial value is 0. Throughout this program, we will use stdcout to print statements onto the console window, and we will use stdcin to accept users' input. Here we are printing guess a number, and we will accept the user's response and store it within the variable guess. Next, we will check whether the user guessed the number or not, and we will either print you guessed it or that you did not. To do this, we will use if-else statement. An if-else statement begins with if followed by a condition within parentheses, and then within curly braces we will write code that we want to execute when the condition is satisfied. Here we will print you guessed it when the condition is satisfied, and then we write else followed by curly braces, and within curly braces we will add code that we want to execute when the condition is not satisfied. Here we will print that's not it when the condition is not satisfied. Now let's go ahead and build and run this program. Now to build the solution, go to build and click build solution. This will start the build process. Notice the build succeeded here. So now let's go ahead and run the program. To do this, go to debug and click start without debugging. Now the program is asking us to guess a number. So let me go ahead and make an initial guess. The first number that I want to try is 10. Let's see what happens when I hit enter. Okay, this is weird. The number that we have stored within the program is 3. The number that we just guessed was 10. However, the program thinks that we made the right guess. So there seems to be a bug within our code. Now let's try and figure out where the bug is by adding a breakpoint. To add a breakpoint, you can click anywhere next to a line number. A solid red dot should appear when the breakpoint is enabled. Now let's restart the program with debugging. And let's try and debug and figure out where the bug was. Now I will input the number as 10 again. Now notice the code is now stopped executing at line 15, and I've added already two variables into the watch window. The first variable that I want to watch is the number that we want to guess. The second variable is the variable that we are storing the user's response. So currently the number the_number has a value 3 and the variable guess has a value 10. Okay, so far so good. Now let's see how to execute code line by line in Visual Studio. To execute code one line at a time, you can use the step over feature, wherein when you click step over or hit F10, only a single line of code will be executed. In this case, line 15 will be executed and program will go and stop in the next line. So now let's see what happens when I click step over. Okay, now notice the program executed line 15 and it's currently waiting at line 16. And notice how also the current content of the variable guess has changed from 10 to 3. Now the reason why this happened was in the if statement, where I was supposed to write a condition within the parentheses, I wrote an assignment statement by mistake, wherein I'm assigning the current state of the variable the_number into the variable guess. So to fix this, we can add an additional equal to symbol here, wherein now this will make this into a condition where we are checking whether guess is equal to the number. So this should fix the issue. But what is important to notice here is making a simple mistake like missing an equal to symbol will not cause a compilation error or a warning. Now the reason why this is because this is valid syntax in C++, wherein you are allowed to change the state of a variable within an if condition. So paying attention to the code that we are writing is very important. Now let's recompile this program. So let's first stop debugging, go to build and rebuild solution, and let's see whether this fixed the issue. Okay, now I will try the number as 10 again, and let's see if this fixed the issue. Okay, that's good. So now the program says that we did not make the right guess. Okay, now let's rerun this code a few more times, and let's try and figure out how many guesses we need to make before we actually guess the right number. To make this a little more interesting, I've gone and changed the number that I've stored in the program, so you also can guess along with me now. Now let's try and rerun the program and input a different number. Now I will try, let's see, 18. Okay, the program says that we did not make the right guess, so let's retry this again. This time I will try, say, 1. Notice now the program again says that we did not make the right guess, so let me try a couple more times. Okay, let's try 8. 8 is still not the right guess. Let's keep continuing. Let's try 14. 14 is still not the right guess. But I hope you've realized by now that this probably could take infinitely many iterations, and we need to really be lucky to actually hit the right guess. The reason why it could potentially take infinitely many iterations to actually make the right guess is because the code in its current state does not provide additional information to the user to narrow down the search process. The code currently only informs whether or not the user made the right guess, and after that it doesn't help the user in any way to narrow down the search process. So now let's see if we can improve this code by answering a few questions. The first question that we want to ask is, what if we want to tell the user whether the guess is too high or too low? Can this help the user to make a more informed choice in the next guess? And will this help accelerate the process of guessing the right number? So to do this, we will add a new if condition. The if condition that we will add now is going to check whether the guess is greater than the number. If the guess is greater than the number, we will print that's too high. And in an else if, we will check if the guess is less than the number. If it's less than the number, we will print that's too low. Otherwise, we will print that the user guessed the number correctly. Okay, now let's rebuild this program and see how many iterations it will take with this new change to actually make the right guess. The first number that I want to try is 15. So let's see what happens when I enter 15. Now notice there are two things. The first is 15 is not the right guess, but the program additionally says that 15 is too high, which means the number stored within the program is less than 15. So now this reduces the number of potential choices for the next round. So now let's try a number less than 15. Let's try 8. Okay, 8 is still not the right guess. However, 8 is too low, which means the number that's stored within the program is between 9 and 14. So it could be either 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 or 14. So notice how we quickly reduce the number of choices from potentially being infinite to 6. Now let's try, say, 11. Okay, 11 is too low, which means the number could be either 12, 13 or 14. Now let's try 13. 13 is too high, which means that the number that is stored within the program is 12. So now let's go ahead and verify this. Let me enter 12. And there it is. 12 is the number stored within the program. So what's important to notice again here is, by adding an additional if statement, we provided useful information to the user that helped to accelerate the search process from being potentially infinite to something more manageable. The next question that we want to ask is, what if we wanted to have the user retry until they get it right? That is it possible for us to allow the user to try more than one guess without having to restart the program? To do this, we will add a while loop. A while loop begins with while, followed by a condition within parenthesis. And within curly braces, we will write the body of the loop that will be executed as long as the condition is satisfied. Here the condition that we will check is whether guess is not equal to the number. So as long as guess is not equal to the number, the user is allowed to make a new guess, and the program will check if the guess is greater than the number. It will inform the user that the number is too high. Otherwise, it will check if the guess is less than the number, and it will inform the user that the number is too low. Otherwise, it will inform the user that they guessed it right. So now let's recompile and run this program and see what changed. Okay. Now the first number that I want to try is 12. So in between I've changed the number from 12 to something else. So 12 should not be the right guess. Okay, so 12 is not the right guess and it's too low. So let's try 20. 20 is too high. So now the number should be between 12 and 20. So let's try, say, 16. 16 is too low. So let me try 18. 18 is too high, which means the number should be 17. Okay, now something weird happened. After we input 17, the program just stopped executing. That is it, we did not see the statement "you guessed it right," and the program finished. Now the reason why this happened was the while loop will execute only as long as the condition is satisfied. So once we input the number as 17, notice guess is equal to the number, so it does not enter the while loop, and therefore it did not check this else condition, and we did not see the print statement "you guessed it." So now let's remove this else from this while loop because it's useless, and let's put the print statement "you guessed it" once the loop is exited. So now let's recompile the program and run it. This time I will try 16. It's too low. Let's try 17, and notice that 17 is the right guess. The last question that we want to ask is, what if we wanted to retry only for a fixed number of times? With while loop, we tried until we got the right guess. Now, is it possible to change while loop to something else so that we can only retry for a fixed number of times? To do this, we will add a for loop. A for loop begins with for, and within parentheses, we will declare a special variable. The variable here is I. It's initialized to 0. Its type is an integer. And then we will write a condition. The condition here checks whether I is less than 6. As long as I is less than 6, the loop will be executed. And once I is greater than or equal to 6, the loop exits. Next, we will tell how to increment I at the end of the loop. Here we are incrementing I by 1. Now the body of the loop is the same as before, wherein first we will check if guess is greater than the number. If it's greater than the number, we will print it's too high. Otherwise, we will check if it's less than the number. If it's less than the number, we will print it's too low, and so on and so forth. Now let's compile and run this program and see what happens. Okay, so now let's first try more than 6 guesses and see what happens. The first guess I want to try is 1. It's too low. Now let me try 30. It's too high. I'll try 2. It's too low. Now let me try 29. It's too high. Now let me try 5. It's too low. Now notice I've already provided 5 guesses. So now this is the 6th guess. So let's try 22. It's too high. Now let's see what happens when I guess 15. Okay. Now notice how the program just quit after I guessed 15. The reason why this happened was it asked us for a guess, but now I was equal to 6. So therefore it did not go and execute the loop once more, and it just quit the program. So now let's try the same program and let's see if we can guess the number within 6 iterations. So let's try it as 12. 12 is too low. Now let's try 20. 20 is too high. Now let me try 16. 16 is too low. Let's see 18. 18 is too high. Now let's see if 17 is the right guess. And there you go, 17 is the right number. So we can verify this. The number stored within the program is 17. So what the show does is that we can use a while loop to allow the user to retry as many number of times as they want until they guess the right guess. Or we can use a for loop wherein we will restrict how many number of times the user can guess the number. And finally, what I want you to remember from this class is that it's important to pay attention to the code that we are writing. A small mistake like missing an equal to sign within an if condition could lead to errors that could be hard to find. And second is, we also want to pay attention to how we write our conditions. Our conditions should not be too simple that the program does not provide sufficient information. And we saw how by just adding an if condition which said whether the number is either too high or too low helped us to narrow down the search process from potentially being infinite to something more manageable. In the next class, we will see a new program, and we will also probably learn few additional things within Visual Studio that can help you with your upcoming homeworks.